Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of information, sift through it, and pull out the most important nuggets just for you. Today we're diving into something really getting a lot of buzz. OpenAI's latest flagship model, GPT-5. We've gathered a whole load of sources, industry analyses, benchmark reports, user feedback, even insights directly from OpenAI to try and understand what this new AI really means for you.
Right. Our mission today is basically to cut through all that noise. We want to figure out if GPT-5 is, the revolutionary leap everyone's hyping it up to be, or maybe more of an iterative step, still significant, but maybe not world-changing overnight. And more importantly, what are its actual capabilities and its limitations, especially for someone like you, whether you're looking to use it in your work or just get a handle on its impact.
Exactly. It's being called a PhD level expert. So yeah, let's peel back the layers and see what's truly under the hood. So OpenAI's CEO, Sam Altman, he's using this really strong analogy for GPT-5, a PhD level expert. I mean, that's quite a jump from GPT-3 being a high school student and GPT-4 a college student. Feels like more than just an upgrade. It sounds like they're deliberately aiming it at, well, high-stakes professional use.
Yeah, and what's really striking is how fast and deep the integration is across the whole Microsoft ecosystem. Microsoft 365 Copilot, GitHub Copilot, Azure AI Foundry, it's everywhere, immediately. That partnership gives OpenAI this huge distribution channel right from the start. It really signals an enterprise-first strategy this time around. They're going for the big leagues.
But setting the bar that high, calling it an expert, doesn't that create a bit of a trap, like a credibility trap? We saw that straight away, didn't we, with the media jumping on that simple decimal subtraction mistake in the launch demo. You don't really expect a PhD expert to mess up basic arithmetic.
That's a really good point. It definitely raises the question, how do they manage perception when, any little flaw gets magnified like that? Their heavy focus on drastically cutting down hallucination rates, that feels like a direct response, trying to achieve that kind of near-flawless consistency.
And beyond the tech and the strategy, it's kind of fascinating hearing Sam Altman himself talk about it. He sounds almost apprehensive. He compared its development to the Manhattan Project. That's a heavy comparison. And he even admitted to feeling a personal crisis of relevance after seeing it solve something he couldn't. Said he felt useless.
Yeah, hearing that level of candor, that kind of weight from the CEO, it's pretty telling. It speaks volumes about the perceived power here.
Okay, so it's positioned as the super smart expert. But how does it actually work? What's the engine driving it?
Well, the core innovation seems to be the architecture. It's not like the older models, these sort of single big monoliths. GPT-5 is engineered as a unified system. And the key part is this real-time router at its heart. Think of it like an intelligent dispatcher. It looks at each prompt coming in. How complex is it? Does it need tools? What's the user actually asking for? Like maybe you prompted, think hard about this. And then it sends that prompt to the best underlying model within the system for that specific job.
Right, so it's not just one giant brain anymore. It's like a team of specialized brains coordinated by a manager. Why is that system of systems approach so important?
Well, connecting it to the bigger picture, it seems driven by practicalities, both cost and engineering. Trying to run one massive frontier model for, maybe 700 million weekly users. That would just be astronomically expensive. So this routed architecture, it makes the state-of-the-art stuff accessible even for free users while keeping OpenAI's costs sustainable. It's a kind of a business model innovation just as much as a technical one.
Okay, that makes sense. And it's not just one model being routed to, right? It's a whole family.
Exactly. You've got GPT-5 main for sort of everyday stuff, GPT-5 thinking for the really tough problems, GPT-5 Pro is the top-tier premium one, and even lighter versions, Mini and Nano, for speed or maybe high-volume tasks. And they're so confident, apparently, that they're getting rid of all the older models. GPT 3.5, the whole GPT-4 series, gone. Signals they think this new system covers all the bases.
Wow. Okay.
And a huge part of what makes it capable is the context window. It's dramatically bigger. For API users, the main models can handle up to 272,000 input tokens and 128,000 output tokens.
272,000 tokens.
What does that mean in practice? Like, how much text is that?
It's huge. A token is roughly, like 3/4 of a word in English. So we're talking novel-length text, multiple long documents, an entire code base. Even for premium ChatGPT users, it's 128,000 tokens, which is still massive. It lets GPT-5 basically ingest and reason over enormous amounts of information in one go. That's a game changer for complex professional work, like giving it a really, really good short-term memory. Right. It can hold the whole problem in its head at once. Right. So they claim it's smarter, more capable, bigger memory. But what do the actual numbers say? Are the benchmarks backing this up? especially in things like science and math.
They are putting out some impressive results, particularly in STEM, yeah.
Yeah.
In math, GPT-5 Pro, when it uses Python tools, apparently got a perfect 100% on the AIM 2025 benchmark.
That's the American Invitational Math Exam, right? Super tough.
Exactly, so hitting 100% there is quite something. Even GPT-5 thinking, without tools, scored like 99.6%. And for really deep science questions, PhD-level stuff, on a benchmark called GPQA Diamond, GPT-5 Pro scored 89.4%. That's reportedly well ahead of competitors.
And what about coding? For all the developers listening, sounds like it's meant to be their best coding model yet.
Definitely positioned that way. It scored 74.9% on SW Bench Verified. That tests fixing real bugs in actual code bases, and 88% on Aider Polyglot, which is about editing code across multiple programming languages. Plus, it's apparently more efficient. Uses like 22% fewer tokens and 45% fewer tool calls than the previous model for the same coding tasks. That means cheaper API calls and faster results for developers, which is always good news.
Okay, so clear improvements there.
Yeah, if you compare it to older models like GPT-4o or o3, it's a definite step up across coding, math, even health benchmarks. Like on Health Bench Hard, it dropped the error rate from nearly 13% down to just 1.6%. But when you look at its rivals, the picture's a bit more nuanced. For instance, on that SW Bench coding test, Claude Opus 4.1 is right there at 74.5% compared to GPT-5's 74.9%.
So it's leading, but maybe not by a huge margin in some areas.
Exactly. It's a very tight race at the top.
Okay, what about understanding things beyond text? Multimodal stuff, images, maybe audio. Can it see the world better?
It seems to show strong performance in high-level visual reasoning. Things like scoring 84.2% on the MMMU benchmark, which is college-level visual problem solving, so it can understand complex ideas in images. But, and this is a significant but, how well does it do on precise visual tasks, like pinpointing things?
Like object detection.
Exactly. On the RF100 VL benchmark, which measures exactly that, finding and outlining objects accurately, it only got a mean average precision, or MAP, of 1.5.
1.5, that sounds low.
It's remarkably low compared to specialized models, yeah. And it apparently struggles with basic stuff like counting objects in an image. Got the count right in only 4 out of 10 test images.
Huh. So it can understand the concept of what's in an image, maybe reason about the scene, but it can't reliably tell you where things are or how many there are.
Seems to be the case, yeah. That's a pretty critical limitation for anything needing precise spatial understanding, like, robotics or self-driving cars.
Okay, so one of the big pushes with GPT-5 seems to be reliability, making it trustworthy, right? Less likely to just make things up.
Yeah, they're really hammering that point. And they've given specific numbers for hallucination reduction. GPT-5 main is reportedly 45% less likely to have factual errors than GPT-4o. And GPT-5 thinking, the more powerful one, is 80% less likely than the older o3 model. And if it has web browsing turned on, the hallucination rate for GPT-5 thinking supposedly drops to just 4.5%.
4.5%, that sounds really good. Almost trustworthy enough for serious stuff.
Yeah.
But is there a catch? What happens when it can't browse the web?
Well, that's the key caveat. Without web search, reliability apparently takes a sharp dive. The hallucination rates jump back up to around 40% for GPT-5 thinking and 47% for GPT-5 main on questions where it's trying to find facts.
40 to 47%.
Right.
So nearly half the time it might be wrong if it's just relying on its internal knowledge for facts.
Well, maybe not half the time wrong, but the potential for inaccuracy is still significant in that scenario. Maybe 1 in 10 responses having an error on average. It's still a concern for a tool marketed as an expert, especially in sensitive areas like, say, health advice or legal information.
Right. Still need that critical thinking cap on. And it's got this new safety approach, too. Safe completions instead of just refusing things.
Yeah, the idea is to move away from just saying, I can't do that, to explaining why it can't, maybe suggesting safer alternatives, while still trying to be helpful within its limits.
Okay, now here's something fascinating. They apparently tried to fix the sycophancy problem from GPT-4o, where it was just overly agreeable.
Yes, they deliberately tuned GPT-5 to be less sycophantic, less likely to just tell you what it thinks you want to hear, more direct, maybe more objective.
But fixing that,
Yeah.
it seems like it backfired a bit, or at least had unintended consequences.
It really created an interesting trade-off, yeah. A lot of professional users, developers, researchers, they praise the new directness, called it more clinical, more accurate. But a big chunk of casual users, creative writers, people using it for brainstorming, they really didn't like it. You see feedback all over Reddit, OpenAI forums calling it sterile, formal, robotic, even less humane.
Wow. So trying to make it more objective made it feel Less like a collaborator for some people. A personality paradox, indeed.
Exactly. Fixing one perceived flaw introduced another kind of friction for a different user group.
So OpenAI's solution is letting you pick its personality, like cynic, robot, listener,
That
nerd.
seems to be the plan, yeah.
Yeah.
Offering selectable personas. Sam Altman even said they'd work on making the default model warmer. It just highlights that there's probably no single perfect AI personality, right? What a developer needs is totally different from what a poet wants.
It makes sense.
And it's worth noting, despite all the safety work, their own system card mentions some safety regressions. Apparently, in some specific edge cases, GPT-5 was actually more compliant with requests for things like low-severity hate speech or illicit content compared to the older models.
Oh, really? So it's still a constant balancing act.
Absolutely. Refining safety without stifling utility or creating weird personality quirks. It's incredibly complex.
So beyond the core smarts, GPT-5 seems to pack in a lot of new features,
Right.
moving it beyond just a text box into more of an agentic coworker. What does that mean?
It means it's designed to be more autonomous, capable of handling multi-step tasks using tools, integrating different kinds of information without you having to guide it every single step. And it's natively multimodal. It can apparently weave together text, images, sound, even video contextually. The example they gave was like, you upload a blurry photo of your Wi-Fi router. It doesn't just see the router, it diagnoses the likely issue visually, suggests troubleshooting steps, adopts a helpful support tone, and maybe even drafts an email to your ISP for you.
Whoa.
All in one interaction. That's a pretty big leap from just describing the image.
And it remembers things now, like properly remembers.
Yeah, persistent, tunable memory. That's a big one. It can supposedly remember your preferences, your writing style, details about ongoing projects across different chats, different devices. So it might remember you prefer British spelling or always sign off emails a certain way. Or it could pick up a brainstorming session from 3 days ago, exactly where you left off.
That feels much more like working with, well, not a person, but something that knows you.
And coupled with that is emotional intelligence, or at least simulated emotional intelligence. It's designed to recognize emotional cues in your writing. Are you frustrated, excited, confused? And adjust its own tone and style to be more empathetic or appropriate. You put memory and that kind of responsiveness together, and yeah, you're looking at a whole new category, a sort of rudimentary personal assistant.
Plus more personalization.
Mm-hmm.
Custom personalities we mentioned, changing the interface colors, and app integrations.
Right. Deep app integration for paid users seems key. Connecting to your Google Calendar, Gmail, Google Contacts, so it could schedule meetings, look up your flight details, draft email replies based on your calendar, all without you constantly having to copy and paste information between apps.
Okay, so how is all this actually changing how people work? Let's take software development.
Well, it seems to be accelerating this trend of vibe coding.
Vibe coding?
Yeah, basically describing what you want in natural language, the vibe you're going for, and letting the AI figure out the implementation details. Developers are saying it can generate pretty high-quality front-end code even with a decent aesthetic sense. It can build entire small games, set up project structures, install the right libraries, write modular code, and even apparently fix its own bugs when the code doesn't compile. It's being integrated into tools like Cursor AI, GitHub Copilot, acting much more like a pair programmer, a real coworker.
That's pretty transformative for coding.
Yeah.
What about healthcare? You mentioned lower error rates.
Yeah, it's being positioned strongly there as a tool for triage and patient education. It can understand complex medical jargon, analyze symptoms to maybe flag risks for a doctor review, and crucially, translate things like dense biopsy reports into plain English that patients can actually understand. OpenAI shared a story about a cancer patient using it to get clarity and feel more prepared before talking to their oncologist. That ability to bridge the communication gap is huge.
Yeah, empowering patients. And for scientists. Researchers.
Potentially huge speedups, synthesizing findings from dozens of research papers at once, performing complex statistical analyses, even acting as a sort of peer reviewer. Apparently, it can spot subtle logical flaws in arguments or experimental designs. And in education, seems like a powerful tool for both students and teachers, generating lesson plans, creating interactive simulations, even solving tough university-level math problems. A superpower on demand, as some put it.
Okay, but what about creative fields? Is GPT-5 a better muse, a better writing partner?
Ugh, that's where the opinions really diverge. As a writing partner, some find it does have a better grasp of literary techniques, can generate poetry with stronger emotional arcs, more original metaphors. But Many creative users, the same ones who found it sterile, describe it as less inspiring now, more passive.
Passive. How so?
Like, it gives shorter responses, it's less likely to proactively suggest new directions or ideas. Sometimes it just seems to rephrase what the user already said. And its ability to create, say, visual art or music from scratch seems less emphasized compared to specialized AI tools for those domains.
So maybe great for analysis and structure, but less so for that spark of pure creativity.
It's looking a bit like that, yeah. Human nuance still seems to hold the edge there, perhaps more than ever.
Okay, so for people who really want to push GPT-5, get the most out of it, what are the advanced techniques beyond just typing a basic question?
Well, mastering the prompt is still absolutely central, but now there are nuances. For really complex tasks, explicitly telling it things like, think hard about this or solve this step by step, that seems to be the trigger to engage the more powerful GPT-5 thinking model. You're essentially giving it permission or instruction to spend more computational effort, which should lead to better, more accurate results.
Okay, so guiding its effort level. And you mentioned something called self-correction with rubrics. That sounds intriguing.
Yeah, this is a pretty clever technique. You basically instruct GPT-5 to first define its own criteria for an excellent answer to your request, like create a rubric for a high-quality response to this prompt.
Yeah.
Then you tell it to generate the response and then iterate on its own work, using its own rubric until it meets those standards.
Huh. So you make it judge itself before giving you the answer.
Exactly. It forces a kind of self-reflection and planning loop within the AI. People are finding this significantly improves the quality for complex outputs, like getting production-ready code. OpenAI also has this tool, a prompt optimizer, that can apparently take your basic prompt and automatically refine it for better results.
Handy. And for developers using the API, how do they control this engine?
There are new parameters offering more control. There's one called reasoning effort. This lets you explicitly choose the trade-off between speed and quality, set it to minimal for maybe fast auto-completions or high for when you need really deep thought, like designing software architecture. And there's a verbosity parameter too, which controls how long and detailed the response is without you having to change the actual prompt itself.
So fine-tuning the output style. What about integrating it into bigger workflows, making it work with other tools?
A big improvement there, apparently, is defining and calling custom tools. You can now do it using just plain text descriptions or regular expressions.
Not just rigid JSON formats.
Right. Much easier, especially for passing large chunks of data, like code snippets, back and forth between GPT-5 and your own tools. And OpenAI is also recommending a new API, the Responses API, instead of the older Chat Completions API, specifically for these more agentic applications. It's designed to better preserve the model's internal reasoning state across multiple steps in a task, making those complex multi-turn workflows more intelligent and coherent. It remembers how it got to a certain point.
Okay, lots of power under the hood for advanced users and developers there. Now, GPT-5 didn't just appear in a quiet room. The AI landscape is incredibly competitive right now. How does it stack up?
Oh, the competition is fierce. Elon Musk, with xAI, immediately claimed his Grok 4 Heavy model was better. And he even issued this stark warning to Microsoft saying, OpenAI is going to eat Microsoft alive. Strong words.
Yikes.
And Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.1 is still right there. Very competitive on key things like coding benchmarks. All this pressure, it just forces everyone to keep innovating rapidly and be really aggressive on pricing.
Speaking of pricing, OpenAI launched with what looked like pretty low API prices to get people using it. Is it really cheaper?
Well, the input token cost for the main GPT-5 model is 50% cheaper than GPT-4o was. So feeding it information is less expensive.
Right.
But there's a potential hidden cost people need to be aware of. When GPT-5 engages that deeper GPT-5 thinking mode, all those internal processing steps, the reasoning tokens, they get billed as output tokens.
And output tokens are more expensive.
8 times more expensive, apparently. So if you ask it a really complex question that requires a lot of internal thought, your bill might be significantly higher than you expect, unless you specifically set that reasoning effort parameter down to minimal.
Ah, so the pricing incentivizes simpler, faster queries unless you consciously choose otherwise. Sneaky.
It's definitely something to watch in your billing, yeah.
What about the general vibe from users since it launched? Is it living up to the hype in the real world?
It's definitely been a mixed bag. As we said, professionals, especially in technical fields, seem pretty impressed with the power, the precision, the reduced sycophancy. But the creative and casual users, often disappointed, finding it sterile, passive, lacking that spark. And the launch itself wasn't perfectly smooth. Lots of reports of technical glitches, slowness. Some users saying it felt objectively shit on day one, and some bugs, like edited messages reappearing, seem to have persisted for a while.
Okay, so some teething problems. And there's also this view from some analysts, right, that maybe it's more iterative than revolutionary.
Yeah, you hear that sentiment. That while it's clearly powerful, many of the headline features, multimodality, better reasoning, agentic capabilities, were already emerging or present in competing models from Anthropic, Google, and others. So a strong step forward, but perhaps not a radical leap into a completely new paradigm. But if we connect this to the bigger societal picture, those agentic capabilities, even if iterative, are poised to reshape knowledge work quite fundamentally. When it can automate entire workflows, analyzing reports, identifying risks, drafting memos tasks that used to be the core job of, say, a junior analyst.
That's job displacement moving further up the ladder.
Exactly. It's shifting from primarily impacting clerical or routine tasks to potentially automating entry-level professional analysis. That's a significant shift.
So the challenge becomes not just learning to use AI, but learning how to collaborate with it, manage it, maybe even compete with an AI agent doing similar work.
Precisely. Which points towards a massive need for workforce retraining, rethinking education, focusing on skills that AI doesn't easily replicate, like complex problem framing, deep critical thinking, interpersonal skills.
And the ethical questions must be getting louder, too, with more capable, more autonomous models.
Absolutely. It's a documented high capability in sensitive areas like biology and chemistry, combined with its autonomy, definitely amplifies concerns about potential misuse. Worries about more sophisticated fraud, erosion of trust in information, reinforcing societal biases. It all accelerates the calls for robust governance and regulation. The stakes just keep getting higher.
Which leads us to the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Is this AGI, artificial general intelligence? Have we arrived?
Ah, the billion-dollar question. Sam Altman himself is careful but suggestive. He calls it a significant step along our path to AGI, describes it as generally intelligent. But he and most other researchers are quick to point out the limitations. It doesn't learn continuously from experience like we do. It's still fundamentally based on pattern matching from its training data, not true understanding or consciousness.
So incredibly sophisticated pattern matching, but not thinking in the human sense.
That's the dominant view among experts, yes. Critics would say it's still just a very, very advanced algorithm, a complex statistical model, not true general intelligence.
So maybe that Manhattan Project analogy Altman used. Maybe that's the most useful frame right now.
Quite possibly. It suggests the most pressing question isn't, is it AGI yet? But rather, are we as a society ready ethically, socially, to handle a tool this powerful and transformative? GPT-5, whether it's AGI or not, feels like it represents a kind of point of no return in our relationship with artificial intelligence. Hashtag #outruo.
Well, this deep dive into GPT-5 has definitely given us a lot to chew on. It's pretty clear that while the tech is incredibly powerful and it's made some really significant leaps, especially for professional use, it also throws up some complex challenges. Everything from managing user feelings about its personality to grappling with the huge societal shifts from automating knowledge work.
Indeed. We've seen the impressive numbers, the clever design choices behind that unified system, but also the real-world reactions, the limitations, and that ongoing ethical tightrope walk.
So for you, our listener, maybe here's a final thought to consider. If GPT-5 or something like it can effectively perform the role of a PhD-level expert in so many different fields, what are the truly fundamental human skills, beyond just knowing stuff, beyond learning new information, that will become absolutely essential for success and maybe even just flourishing in the future? Something to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and stay well informed.